This is an oral history interview with Amanda Sam at the Virginia Holocaust Museum on March 12, 2012. The videographer is Lindsay Stone and the interviewer is Timothy Hensley. Can you begin by telling us your full name?
My name now is Amanda Prak Sam. My Cambodian name is Sokanya Prak.
And where and when were you born?
I was born sometime in 1969. I was told that I was named partially after the month I was born, so it was September 1969. Don't remember the date because during the Khmer Rouge time we were ordered to destroy all the documents. So there's no birthday celebrations, no school, no any kind of educations. The 4 years that we endure under the Khmer Rouge regimes, it's hard for my parents to remember the date of birth. So we actually have to make up one while we were in the refugee camp. So my new date of birth is November 30, 1970.
Where did you grow up?
I consider myself grew up here. When I came to the United States, I was 12, almost 13. So it's been 30 years here. I spent 4 years of my life with the Khmer Rouge, so I don't consider that growing up. And 2 years in a refugee camp.
But as a child, where were you living?
As a child, I was born in Battambang City. That's the second largest city in Cambodia.
And what did your parents do for a living?
My father then, he was a school teacher. My mother was a housewife.
And how many siblings do you have?
I have a total of, including myself, is 10 of us, but only 8 of us have survived. 2 younger siblings, a brother and a sister, died of malnutrition in 1979.
And can you give us an idea sort of the age ranges?
Of our age range, most of us are 2 years apart. So the oldest is about 52 right now. Yeah, I'm 42 years old.
So
right.
Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, about growing up?
My childhood, it's sadly to say, I don't remember a whole lot of a good thing that happening. As far as my memory go back to when I was 5, almost 6 years old, when the Khmer Rouge took over. I remember the time that my father ordered us to go sleep in a bunker and told us that do not to come out unless he come out for us. At first, the experience at first was exciting. It's just like camping, and you get to sleep outside of your house. But then that excitement turned into nightmare because you hear a lot of bombing and shooting. And all of a sudden, the street, what used to be so busy in Battambang, it's like this, people never sleep almost. It's like always busy, even midnight. But during the time, it was just like silence, almost like a ghost city, like everybody left us behind. All you could hear is dog barking once in a while, and then crickets, and then beside that, it was just the loud bombing.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 5, almost 6 really, as getting ready to start first grade. And so I actually never have a chance of going to school at all. I was looking forward to it. I had a dream of becoming a doctor because I've seen, my grandparents getting old, and I was worried about them. I wanted to take care of them, but that dream died before I even get a chance because I didn't have any schooling then.
So the Khmer Rouge sort of came in about the time you were 5 or 6.
Yes, the Khmer Rouge came just shortly after our New Year celebration. That's just one thing that I remember that my mother didn't get the house ready for, because as a child I remember just going to relatives' homes or neighbor, exchanging food, dishes, and all kinds. It's not just for the holiday, but it's like every day we're doing that. It's just all part of our cultures. And but then that year, that when the Khmer Rouge took over, there was no celebration. We were just told to go stay in a bunker.
And that's Cambodian New Year, is it?
It was a Cambodian New Year's.
Okay.
Yes, our New Year's April 13, 14, 15. We celebrate for 3 days. It's one of the the biggest holiday in Cambodia is the religious holiday. So all businesses and shop they close for 3 days. It's a big deal. Everybody getting their new clothes made, custom made. Men and women get their hairdo for the New Year celebration.
Do you remember any tension around the house or anything before this happened?
Before it happened, I see my father often, whispering things with mom. And then after dinner, he and a bunch of friends, his male friends, get together. They listen to radio very closely. It showed some concern. So we tend to ask our father, say, Dad, what's going on? He say, oh, there's nothing.
Do you remember hearing much about the United States involvement in Vietnam prior to that?
I hear some discussions about the American bombing. It was during the Nixon presidency. I don't understand much of what's going on around, but I obviously hear a lot of adults, talk about the bombings and stuff like that before, yes.
So your father had some sense of things were going to change in the country?
Obviously, there's a lot of concerns, a lot of change. We tend to hear here and then. And like I said, when we ask, what's going on, he said it is nothing. And we asked Father, what is that loud noise we hear? And he say, oh, that's just thunder, but it was really bomb that's going on.
So on the New Year celebration, by that point, the Khmer Rouge were actually taking over?
It was a couple of days after the New Year, so it was April 17 when it took over. It just like unexpected, just like a September 11. All of a sudden, you hear people, you hear crowd, like all of a sudden everything just come back to life again. You hear cheering, you hear honkings and the loudspeakers, so everybody ran out, and we see a lot of people with white flag. When you see people cheer, you just cheer as a child. You ran over and cheers, and all of a sudden that excitement turned into some really scary over the loudspeaker with this. They not asking but demanding that we have to evacuate the city. They claim that the Americans are going to bomb our city again. That's when those bombing come back to in my mind. You say, I heard about that before. So they were saying that we don't have time to pack. We only be gonna be gone for 2 to 3 days, and we'll be back in our home. But my father insisted that my mother pack. I seen some of the stuff already pre-packed, but I didn't understand. But it's kind of explained when they took over that and there were hundreds and thousands of people were fleeing on foot and stuff like that. And as we speak right now, I could see, and hear it it's just like happened just yesterday. Hundreds of people were stampeded to death. Children were crying, adults when they're desperately looking for their family. And it just make it very, very hard for families to stick together. On that evening or the next day, at the same time, we have a monsoon. I remember being soaking wet, hungry, and we had to stop at one point where my aunt hold this corrugated metal over us to block us from the rain so we can eat. And I remember crying, asking my father, when is it over? So when we're coming back home, he kept on saying, we have to move. And it was a whole lot longer than we expected, and we were not able to go back home like they promised that we would.
And at this time, were the Khmer Rouge soldiers sort of guiding people in a certain direction?
They were not guiding us. They just just tell us to go to the countryside to follow. They were with guns firing in the air, threatening that you have to keep on moving or you're going to get shot. I see elderly were left behind to die, handicapped. Patients were railing out in this hospital bed with rolling, and people were putting the sick one on a bike and it's like that and pushing it. So it's so much that I can't really describe. If you've seen a war movie, the evacuations, and there were actually people were being shot, not just threatened, but they were being shot and killed.
Do you have any sense for how long you were moving?
We were moving. It was about. It's weak because at some point we ran out of food to eat. So we were desperate. So we were looking for anything to eat, edible roots, and we learned this like mushroom, and people die of the poisonous mushroom. So it's just something that we take precautions. We hunted for frogs and crickets and fish, anything that we can get hold. So we were on a run nonstop. At some point, I didn't understand why we had to keep on going, because a lot of people, they already make the stop. But my father later explained to us that we had to keep on moving because if people know our past, that we're at risk of getting persecuted. So it's about probably about 3 months before we came to a stopping point, and father instructed that none of us call him like the city people does, mom and dad. We call them like ma and pa, like people in the countryside, and it was very difficult for us to get used to. At first we tend to slip, and he looked at us with this sincere look and saying, "Do you want to get killed? Do you want me to get killed? Because if you don't, then not call me that."
And at this point, as you're leaving, do you have most of your extended family with you, or are there just a few?
As a matter of fact, just our immediate families are with us. But most of the relatives are going to the different area just because my father was a former school teacher, and that led to we seeing so many that they killed the intellectual. They turned family against each other. As a matter of fact, my father's parent, his mother, threatened to disown him because he refused to go back to his hometown, his birthplace. And he insisted that we had gone somewhere far, and we just, I would say, probably about 6-7 months after that, most of his relatives were killed because with the service, armies and stuff like that, or even college students. Yeah, so we're lucky that we escaped to places where people don't know us.
And when you finally stopped moving, where had you arrived?
We were in this place. We were separated into zone. There's zone 1, 2, 3, and 4. We in zone 3. We were stopped. My father built this shack. But it's on the stilt because of the monsoon, so it had to be higher. But I was at the point I was with my family. My older sibling was sent out to work camp, but then they come back during the night, and so it's my parents, and I was with my younger sibling and babysitting them. But then when I was turned 8, the government or the people who are in charge of the village or the town says, I'm too old to be fed. They consider that I'm being lazy. In order for me to eat, I had to go work. So that's when they took me, and I was separated from my family to a child forced labor camp where I can't come home at all.
So how long were you in the town originally?
I was in the town about 1 month. I'm sorry, I take back a year before I was separated.
And during that time, you were caring for your younger sibling?
I was caring for my younger sibling, yes.
But your older siblings and your parents were
out working in the field.
Were they essentially just farming?
They do all kind of work in the rice paddy, digging canal. My father was work as a fisherman, where he blended and where he acted as a retarded fisherman in order to save all a family from because you can't show any signs of intellectual.
So you were there for about a year, and then they sent you to a different camp.
To child forced labor camp.
And what was that like?
I can tell you it's like a living hell. I'm not used to the kind of work, so we are giving a certain amount of work to be finished, individuals, and everybody's for themselves. Nobody watching out for you, so this most of the time I don't even get a chance to eat because I am slow at what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing because I was never had any kind of training. But I cannot show any signs of, you can't argue, first of all. And because I couldn't finish the work, so I don't get a chance to eat. And there's no such thing as they will save for you. I've just become the skins and bones. I feel that I could just fall when the wind blow, even just when the wind just can easily knock me out. So I was really suffering. I was homesick, missing my family is one thing. And when I come back to the building where we sleep, there's practically just sleeping on the floor, no blanket. I only have the outfit that I had on when I left home, which is just the black uniform. Majority it looked like a pajama. We have to dye every color of the clothing into black. You're constantly dyeing with some sort of like a plant or even the mud, ashes, anything just to keep it black. So with my black uniform, I go to work, we leave while it's still dark, leave the building and come back very dark also. So the clothes that I have on, I just have to wash off the mud and sleep when the wet clothes, and before it even dry, I had to get up and go back to work again. So it was just so hard, and I've seen a lot of people getting beaten to death with axe and hammers and shot and stuff like that. So I prayed that I would die in my sleep to end the suffering, because I was really scared. You go to sleep with an empty stomach, and I cry myself to sleep.
And at night, are you sleeping with a lot of people in the same
Yes,
space?
there was probably about over 100, maybe 130 kids, but we don't make friends with anybody. We cannot show any kind of emotion. You can't even show that you cry, just have to keep to yourself.
Did you have some sense of how many children were in this particular camp?
Majority of around my age, maybe some are a couple years older. So I'm looking at it's like probably about 100 something, yeah.
And what are you doing most of the day? Are you actually working in rice paddies and
I
things
work
like
in
that?
the rice paddy. I carry a basket of dirt. We build irrigation project. Yeah, whatever they tell us to do, we do. Even during the work time, even like when you have on break, you're not breaking. While you eat, they still go on announcement. They're meeting after meeting. They were trying to drill, that about people being educated, infected. It's like a virus contagious with evil. Anybody with the sort of education is considered contaminated with the Western world. So even as while we eat, we still get lecture. We have often meetings, and they show that we belong to the government. The family don't belong together. We were encouraged to turn in our families or anybody we know with any summit, So in other words, they brainwash us.
And so you were getting a fairly routine explanation for what was going on and what they wanted to do.
Well, what they want to do, they want to purify us. That's what they're saying.
Okay.
They want to sort of, if you used in the medical word, like disinfecting us, because we were contaminated from our parents who, so.
And all the food that you're growing, for example, did you have some sense of what was happening with it, where it was going?
We was told that everything we grow is for our future, but we actually hardly ever seen anything. We were given for at least a 10-hour work day. We're given maybe a spoonful of rice if you collect it together. It's mostly just water. And they don't even give us salt. So for me, you know, as far as the food go, not just for me, but for everybody, it's never enough. You don't even feel not saying enough, but just something to hold you, to give you some energy. There were days that I pick over my scab from a mosquito bite. I sucked my own blood to get that satisfaction. So I even licked the salt on my arms and like that when it dried up, just to get that energy.
And so you would get a little, essentially a rice, watery rice.
Watery rice, yeah, barely anything at all.
And then no meats, no vegetables.
Once in a while there was like a little fish. I mean, I would die for even just a fish head. You know, we don't eat it here, but you know, even then, so anything that hopping around, we'll make sure that we'll get it and then hidden it away.
Did you ever notice any other instances where kids from the camp would actually escape?
There were but then a lot of time they were captured and they were being punished to death right in front of us to show that this is what happened if you attempt to do. As a matter of fact, it was a year after my separation from my family. I saw my mother for the very first time we were working a rice paddy. We can only look at each other, steal a look from each other from the corners of our eyes, but they are not to speak. Because we know the consequences we'll be facing if we get caught. And if you can imagine, for me, I just want to throw myself at my mom. I just want to tell my mom that, Mom, I want to go home. You know, it's just like I just dream of doing that, but I can imagine what my mom felt. You know, you finally see your kid, but you can't talk to her, you can't hold her. So I came back to the camp sleeping. I couldn't sleep, so it was actually a girl. We just kind of become friends, and she's also was very homesick, and she want to go home. She told me that she know the way, because I have no sense of directions, and she said she know the way, that we will leave in the middle of the night and then come back before work, so that way we don't get in trouble. So we took our chance. This is shortly after I saw my mother, and I couldn't not go home. So we left, and then we got lost, and we got caught. We were punished for it. Was tied to a tree, was red ants, was really crawling all over me like that, and we were not allowed to go to sleep. We have to work while everybody's sleeping. We worked in a rice paddy in the middle of the dark, planting rice, and mosquito was eating on us and like that. And that friend of mine, she unfortunately, she died 3 days later because she got really sick. And for me, I wasn't afraid of dying, but I was afraid of being tortured, you know, beat and stuff like that. So I really prayed that I would die so I don't have to feel, you know, suffer. But I guess it's God just saying just to hang on, so, you know. Luckily, they kind of forgive me and let me go on with.
So you went back into sort of a normal work rotation?
A normal work, yeah, but I was not allowed, none of us were actually allowed to talk to anybody even at night. Even when we were living at home with our family, we're not even allowed to talk to each other.
And was that the only time that you saw any of your family?
That was the only time that I saw my mother, yes.
So during that, and how long were you in this camp?
I was in the camp for 2 years.
So during that 2-year period, that was the
Yeah.
only time you saw him?
Yeah, it would have been a whole lot longer if it weren't for the Vietnamese, the invaded in 1979. But, it's like, here I go again, praying to God that we actually escaped death because they found out that my father teach. So they actually sending us home, not to reunite us as a family, but to kill us a whole. So my father was tipped. So in the middle of the night, he took us out to a different town where my aunt and her family lived to dispose us. He had to do a lot of begging, a lot of pleading for my aunt to take, because it's very risky for the family, because if someone reported that they take us in, they were considered as a traitor. Well, they already look at us with the traitor, the criminal. So they will also get killed, the entire family. But thank goodness that very morning, the war broke. So when my father dropped us off at my aunt's family, he told us if anything happened, if he's still alive, he'll come back for us and to go to a city, a small city in Battambang, and he'll meet up with us.
And did your father know where your aunt was because that's where she was before? You had left Battambang?
My father knew where my aunt was because I think they ran into one of the earlier. Yeah.
So they had taken you out of the camp back to the town you were originally in.
So yeah, we were
And
sent.
then
Yeah, so we sent. We were like my other sibling also was sent home. Say, okay, you're free to go. You go home. But my father knew what was coming.
So it was basically just a ruse to get you to go back home where
Go back home.
they would have done
Yes,
something.
exactly.
Okay.
And then after my father dropped us off, he come back home to the place where, to face whatever comes. So this way it give us a chance to escape, So he said that if he was still being alive, he probably is going to try to take us to Thailand, the neighbor country.
And so how long did you wind up staying at your aunt's place?
It was just overnight.
Okay.
Just that one night, and the war broke, and we escaped during the open fire.
And when the war started with the invasion, were you close to where the invasion was taking place?
The invasion was practically everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, but prior to the invasions, I remember even seeing like the flash, the light from the sky. So actually, when there's an airplane taking photos and like that. So I guess those were the Vietnamese troops.
So you were at your aunt's, and this is when the war broke out?
When the war
And
broke
then-
out, yes.
Okay.
Minus my parents, but I was with all my siblings, brother and sister.
And your dad thought that he could move from there to Thailand?
He said that yes, because of Battambang, we in the walking distance, but it took us 3 days, 3 nights to get to Thailand. But yeah, that's just close.
So that's where you headed from there?
Actually, when it was like my father came back to us 3 months after the invasion.
Okay, so
that's-
he left.
Yeah, he when after he dropped us off, he left to come back home, and then that's when the war broke. But we almost gave up on him. We thought he had died, because like 3 months we don't see him. My sister and I would go to the main road where we see hundreds and thousands of people fled every day. Some were badly injured, because of the bomb, the shootings, and all that, the landmine. But there's no sign of our father. Unfortunately, my sister died before my father came back to us, so she never get a chance. This is a younger sister.
Younger sister?
Yes, yeah. So after 3 months, my father came back to us, and then a month afterward, we lose a brother. He's also younger than I am. He died of malnutrition and sickness, and
The same for the younger sister?
it was the same way.
Okay.
Yeah. So we didn't have anything to eat. My father found his old canoe, like a boat. So we would transport people passenger from one side of the river to another, trade for just cans of rice to survive. And after a while, more and more people start doing the same kind of business. We hardly make anything, so enough to feed the family. So my father came with this idea where he sold this old boat, the canoe, and borrowed gold from relative. He traveled to Thailand to the border first just to buy some merchandise to bring back to sell, just to make a little profit to keep the family going. On his way back, because it took about 3-day, 3-night journey from Cambodia to Thailand, and he came to this resting point at night with a whole other people doing the same kind of thing. Then they got robbed. In Cambodia, it's this tropical climate, so it was about mid-July, probably June, July, when he went to Thailand. So he slept, took off his shirt, he folded to make it like a pillow and slept on it. When they, say men's with gun coming and rob, so everybody take off. So he took off. So all he had really is just like practically a boxer or a short on, but minus the shirt, and he have whatever left from buying that. He's a little change or cash he put in a pocket, and that's mine. So my older brother and I, because we don't have anything to eat, he have an old fishing net. We go down the river, just trying to catch fish. From morning to late evening, we got one fish with just this ugly fish with big head, which is a very small body. But that's just all food. I was counting down the day for father to come back, because I could taste these noodles, instant noodles. I was asking, that's my dream, of just like, I could just see myself sinking in my teeth in that noodle. You get this, imagine how tasteful it is, the flavors and all. But my father came back home empty-handed. He was in tears, and so did we. And become so desperate, he said, I can't risk anymore losing any more children. We have to take our chance and fled Cambodia. And that's when he made his decision that we go into Thailand. So we have very little, just sacks of clothing, a bucket for waters, and a shovel, because there's no bathroom. We have to use the bathroom. So we made our journey to Thailand. We had to go through the jungle, infested with all kind of dangers. There was the Vietnamese soldier, there was a Khmer Rouge soldier, there was a Thai soldier. They see you, they shoot you, they kill. There's no, So those are kind of danger, and plus the landmines and the booby trap. So it's like a dead zone. When my father made that decision, a family, relatives like his aunt and uncles and other family, was saying that he'd take us back to the killing field, and they didn't like the idea. But my father said there's no choice, but whether he's gonna end up losing more children, or he's gonna, so he took that chance. And we have a little rice to pack, and we eat just a small portion. Everything is being rationed because we know that it's going to be a long journey, and we don't have much. So the rice actually became spoiled, and we still eat until it become like watery, sticky, so we can't no longer eat it. So we actually go on a couple of days without having any food. We during our journey, we traveled through bodies crossing the body of water, the body floating, and we drank that water that the body floating in. People who travel, usually they have gold or silver they can exchange with the Thai currency. We don't have any of those. So while we were just going through journey and without anything, my older brother, he's just kicking around. This is a pack of like a cigarette pack, the sub pack. He's just kicking for the heck of just being a boy. When you're stressed or depressed and stuff like that. And he felt something in there. He picked up. There was a little small piece of gold, and luckily, that's my mother was able to exchange. We were able to get the like the baguette, the French bread. So 3 loaves of that and cans of condensed milk. So that again, my mother makes it just giving us a small portion at a time, so we can keep on going for a couple of days. And we were living in the Thai jungle, not in Thailand yet, but just on the border of, for about 4 months. And for us to make a living, to go on every day, so my father built like a shack, and people come who travel like we do. They have money, gold, and stuff like that. They buy this from us for 100 baht, which is probably maybe, I would say $5-10 really, probably even less than $5. But we'll move out in the middle of the night if any time anybody offered to pay. And my older sibling, they collected firewood for this exchange, waters of buckets, anything that just keep us going for the 4-month period in the jungle.
And were you staying in the jungle on purpose, or were you still trying to get to a refugee camp or something?
There was no refugee camp then in jungle, and then the news came across that the American Red Cross were distributing food. So that's when we go pick up our food supply once a week at this border where the truckloads of come. And you look and imagine like hundreds and thousands of people fighting over and trying to get, a few cups of rice at a time, and, like the water as well. And then later on, this good news came that they're going to bus us to a refugee camp. It was November when the camp was open. I would say late November of 1979. So we were safe by then, and given material to build our home. But in a home, it's not safe because people get robbed, get murdered, and, because the rob, yeah.
You're talking about in the camp?
In the camp, yeah. So a wall made up from like brushes and stuff. People can practically reach over to you, yeah. And there's no real door that can keep your family safe. So, but still, in the camps is way better than living in the Khmer Rouge.
And were there when you first get to the camp, do you notice if there are only refugees in the camp, or are there other? Like, are there ex-soldiers that are in the camp as well?
They were just refugee, but we see there's some soldier made up of the Khmer and the Thai. A lot of us have fears of the Thai soldier or the police because they rape and stuff like that, and there's nobody protecting us. Because when you see, especially for like a teenager or older girl, when they see, Thai with the guns or uniform, they run and hide because they know what they might face things if they, Some people, they just make themselves look like a huge mess so nobody pay attention to them because that's the only way to sort of like to save themselves.
So, what were you doing in the refugee camp, like on a day-to-day basis?
Once the camp filled up, more and more people started, like my family, we fled Cambodia and come to the refugee camp. So, my father, when he teach, and then a year later, my mother was able to find a job at a sewing factory where she worked 7 days a week, at least 12 hours a day for $20 income. That's a month's salary, and my father making $10. Because my parents go back to work, my older sibling go to school, I actually stay home to babysit my younger brother.
And now, was your father teaching in the camp, or was he teaching outside the camp? He
was teaching in the camp. None of us are allowed to leave the camp because around the camp they put barbed wires. But still, people are desperate because they don't have enough food, because the food that we were receiving, it's not enough. I'm giving a lot of credit for saying maybe 30% of what we're supposed to be getting. And so people tend to leave outside the camp, and if they get caught, they get shot. beaten to death or put in jail. Even women, they don't care. Older women, you know, elderly, I've seen all kinds of stuff like that often. And what they're giving us is practically a vegetable that you find all kind of bugs in there, something that they can't sell in the market. A chicken, what we call bomb chicken, because it looked like the chicken been through some kind of explosion, because it's just fat and skin hanging over, because all those good parts are taken it away from it. And we were giving this dry, salty fish, very salty. It smells horrible, and it tastes saltier than salt itself. And if you can imagine eating that for 2 years, that's how long we've been going to a refugee camp. But still, again, that's better than living in the Khmer Rouge.
And was the camp guarded by Thai soldiers?
Yes, by the Thai soldier, the police. Not really guarded, because the reason why I say not guarded means almost anybody free to do anything. You hear all horrible people get murdered and raped, and there's no law protecting us, no one protecting us.
And so you were in the camp for 2 years?
Yes, but 2 years before we get sponsored to America.
Okay, and how did that happen?
We had to go through the many process of the interview. That's when my father gave us the make up date of birth, where we had to go. Each of us were putting in a different room. The interview we all have to come up with giving the same answer, otherwise they couldn't flunk us. Just go through many process, and we have to remember everybody's date of birth. So we have 3 November in my house. My brother, my mom have the same date of birth, and I'm the end of November, and we're just so on and on. And they sent a form here to, I guess, INS, or it was back then, I think they call USCC. I forgot what they stand for, United States something. Anyway, so they looking for sponsor. So when they find a sponsor, they will send for us. And what I can remember that when we come to this country, my parents work. They take a very small amount at a time to sort of like pay back for all tickets to get here.
Okay. And what do you remember about when you got the notice that you were going to get sponsored?
It's like what we'll call our ticket to heaven. We're going to heaven. That's where the United States is heaven. And I agree.
And so you knew a good deal about the United States before coming here?
Anywhere is better than living in a refugee camp in Cambodia. So, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the trip over then.
Well, I was so scared of being separated again. Well, we had to go through that process. When we get the note that we would get sponsored, we have to move to a different camp. That's the final camp before departing. We have to be healthy. We were giving a note that we'd be leaving like in 1 week, and then a day before we were supposed to be leaving, they failed us because the youngest brother, he was having like a fever. Mm-hmm. So we were stuck for another week, and it was just the last camp they were staying called Lumpini, and it's the worst camp ever, because you would sleep on practically just on the floor, the concrete floor, with hundreds and hundreds of people sleeping, sharing. So at night, if you need to get up and go to the bathroom, you'd be walking on everybody, stepping, you get beaten, you get cussed, you get kicked. I mean, you named it. And where we bathe is practically just like a pool, but they don't change water. So actually, you're seeing people peeing. That's the water that you'd be bathing in for however long time you were there for. And for the food, since we living there, we're waiting for departure. We go to the cafeteria where we lined up, and it came to the point that you can't eat anymore, even though you are hungry, because you see caterpillars, you see bug floating in that soup, the vegetable soup they're giving you, because apparently they don't wash anything. They make it so you suffer as much as possible. And we were waiting, and then finally get to be on the plane. I was so afraid. I was crying. I was so afraid that they're going to leave me behind, because my family was ahead of me. You know, when your people are just rushing through because they don't want to get cut off. It's the same way like we get on the bus to the refugee camp from the jungle, from the forest to the camp. You know, I had the same fear that I'd be separated. But I was guaranteed that I'm not going to be separate from my family from now on. I'm going to be with them. So we were on the planes, and it's the first time for any of my family to travel, to fly. And because of all of us were malnutrition, so you can easily get very sick. So just get on the plane, my stomach turned upside down to get very nauseated, and people start throwing up, and it's like a domino effect. Everybody starts throwing up the smell. And this poor stewardess, you call, flight attendants, we feel bad for them, but we can't help because we all like green, like a Hulk, because we were so sick. Every time they bring out the food, the smell of food just make you even sicker. So again, we're telling ourselves we're going to heaven.
So what did you think when you first got here and you met? Did you have like a host family who was actually?
When we came, we met up with my aunt and her family. They came. They got sponsored 2 years before we did. They and their sponsor co-sponsoring us, and we came straight to Richmond. So we met them at the Richmond airport, and then after that, they dropped us at this house, like a temporary home, where we share with 2-3 other families who were staying at a home. We stayed at that home as long until somebody found a job for my parents or somebody, and so we were staying at this temporary home where there's actually refrigerator with lots of foods. So we go through refrigerators. There's a lot of we're not used to. We're not familiar, so we can't eat anything. You know, we're not used to American food. The only thing we can really help ourselves was to the ice cube in the freezer, and it was never got to the point where they turned the ice, even just the top, the water froze. And we, of course, there's other family, they're very mad at, upset with us because we actually up floor where the refrigerators is, and other people had to go upstairs, so they had to do a little traveling. We're the first one to get to everything, so they didn't like us much. So all we can eat is really eggs. And you can imagine eggs. In the middle of the night, my brother, sister, and I would just get up in the middle of the night and have eggs, and what's going on afterward. You can picture that. Yeah, and it was unbelievable because they keep on filling up the food for us, and then we were taken to a church where we go to the basement or attic where they keep all these used clothes. We were in clothes heaven. I was swimming in it, and I put layers, like 4 or 5 layers of clothes on. And we were told, say, take as much as you want, but you feel the need of hiding it, as if you're, because the 4 years with the Khmer Rouge, everybody learned. You have to learn to know how to steal, otherwise you're gonna die of starvation. So even though you were given the your choice to have whatever you want, but you still feel the need to sneak something. It's just it's crazy feeling. But and then while we were there, the show that we like to watch was the Three Stooges. That's incredible. That's the first time I ever watched TV. So.
Yeah. And so I assume your parents found jobs?
Yes, it was like a month later, my mother and my older sister, she was 17. She was too old to start school, so even if she starts school, she's not going to get any fall. So she and my sister and my mother, they work as a housekeeper at a Hyatt Hotel. Now it's just Sheraton on West Broad. And then my father's work at the Rayrick Injector. They make shopping cart. He's the welder. So between the three of them, they trying to support, including my parents, like 9, 10 of us, and they're making the minimum wages. It was very difficult, so we living in this 3-bedroom house with a very old furniture, which often, just go out. So, and because of the old furnace, the electricity bill is incredibly high, and we're facing a lot of problem with that. And so we're using this one space heater. We stay in a room, one room. I remember being so cold that I actually eat while I wrap a blanket around me and eat, and shower with ice cold water because they heat it. Yeah, but it's more than what we have before. So it is still heaven.
So what was it like when you first started going to school here?
Going to school was very difficult because this is my first time in my life that I actually start school. 12, almost 13. They put me in 5th grade because that's where I pick up, I learned, start from the ABC, colors and shape. It was very difficult. And 5th grade, people were not so bad. The kids are not too bad. But then because you don't understand anyone, just make it very difficult. But you go into middle school. When we go to middle school, that's when things are really hard, that we actually get picked on. I get picked on a lot. I have 2 friends. Those friends are very girly. I mean, they have long hair. For me, I'm a girl too, but like a tomboyish type of things. I'm a little tougher than they are. And I actually have to, sit up for them, for myself, because we get picked on, because we're not used to the weather. It was in a dead of a winter, the howling winds and stuff like that. We feel the chill, like we feel like our flash is gonna crack and break like dishes like that in the winter. So we tend to sit low, between the bushes. Kids were breaking the twigs or something from the bush and put in our hair and say, "You got cootie," and that's the first American word that I learned. Cootie. Go to ESL class, ask my teachers, "What's cootie?" But not in the way I'm asking, because it's very broken in English, and even those the teachers, you don't understand, but it's stay in my head, forever. The cootie, yeah, it's not in dictionary trying to look for it, but it's not in. So yeah, but it was very difficult because, and I don't hold that against anyone right now, because it was hard for kids to imagine, to understand. They don't know what's going on in the third world country. Every Asian will call Chinese, because they say, Chinese go back to their country, because they don't understand that. When we're on the bus, they would sit, the bully sitting behind, pulling our hair. We get off, they stick their foot so we can trip and fall, so they can laugh. It just go on. And in the cafeteria, where I sat by myself, and kids still come over and give me a hard time, asking me if I needed direction how to eat my food, the kind of thing. It's a very bothersome. So it's to make me don't want to go to school. Actually, I ditched schools. I even hide in a dog house, in a tool shack. It came to the point that my father knew what we were doing. He even checked the crawl space under the house to make sure we're not hiding in it, because actually he called my brother in there, because like our heat went off, broke that. So he's trying to fix it. It was wet and damp underneath. But my brother, can you imagine, for the 8 hour, it was a crawl space, and and my father, it's dark, and he felt something soft because he was poking on my brother. Ever since then, he learned that he checked the neighbors' backyard everywhere to make sure that we go to school, because he said he dwells on us that education is very important, and he risking his life, all life, to take us here, and we have to go to school, because he said that's his only way of life is to have the proper educations. And so I am thankful for my father that he drills and he push and everything, that he do everything that he can to make sure that we have the education. So.
So did things got easier as you learned the language and everything?
Yes, things got easier. Actually, it got easier when I met my first American friend, Stephanie Price, her name. She and her mother sort of like take me in like part of their family. Once I have that friends, I feel more comfortable going to school, more going to classes. I didn't want to ditch class anymore because there I have my friends with me. And she's actually the one that gave me my name, Amanda. Yeah, because when I finished middle school, my parents saying that we're gonna go to California. So then I asked my friend, I say, well, to honor our friendship, I like for you to give me a name. When I become American citizens, I'm gonna use it. That's the name that she and her mother came with, Amanda. So here I am, Amanda, today.
And you finished school?
Yes, I was able to graduate, high school, and then went to City College for 2 years. Unfortunately, I had to drop out from school just because my father's health declining. And we were living in California at the time. I graduated from California, by the way. And we were struggling because my father was sick, and so I quit school. I go work full time to help support the family. Like I did when I was 13 years old. We were struggling, to make the ends meet. So after school, I go clean offices and stuff like that to help my parents with paying the rent. And because we struggled there, he has a friend who lives in California, advised us, hey, come to California. There's a better job opportunity because my father, he can also fix home, he do a lot of carpentry work also. So he's pretty good with his handwork. And we went there, and we didn't care too much for California, but we don't have money to move back to Virginia. So we lived there about 6-7 years. After I graduated, I moved back to Virginia. This is it for us.
And did your parents stay in California?
They stayed there about a year, and then all of us are here now back together again in Richmond. All my siblings, we're just about 5-6 minutes away from each other.
And now you're working with a nonprofit, your own nonprofit?
Yes, because I am so grateful for life here, good life here. Ever since the first day that we land foot in America, I appreciate so much. I seen a stranger, like my sponsors and other people I make friends with, and from the church, and I say I'm going to give back one day. And this is when I had the opportunity. So I started a nonprofit called 100 Pounds of Hope to give back.
And can you tell us a little about what you do?
100 Pounds of Hope, the first few years, what we do is to do the emergency food relief. I travel back to Cambodia once a year. I've been doing that ever since 2006. And now we're more focusing on building a school, because this is the only way is to break that cycle of poverty, because the aftermath of the Khmer Rouge still affect a lot of people, especially in the urban rural area. That the kids actually 5-6 years old were forced to work, had to work because to help to support their families, and because of that desperation of the lack of education, they falls in the hands of the traffickers. So human trafficking is the worst in Cambodia. It's a problem around the world, but it's the worst in Cambodia, where girls as young as 5-6 years old being sold by the family into a brothels or kidnapped. It's just I know I cannot save everybody, but I would try to save as many as I can. By doing that, I just have to go through educations. Just building a school is not going to save them. You also have to feed them. So what my foundation, or my group are working hard right now is trying to raise the fund, find any kind of fund we can get is to feed this kid during the school day. So, I mean, that's just it's going to be a challenge work, but it's doable.
So what would you like people, yes? right at the end of a. So, what would you like people to take away from your experiences? Like, what message would you like them to?
The message I will want to give the people is to actually to appreciate life. I was given the second chance of living the life that I am very grateful for it, and live every day like your last day, because you just don't know it. And if you can, to try to make the difference, help those who are less fortunate than you are.
And I know you just came back from Cambodia not long ago.
Yes, I just got back about almost 3 months ago, really. I'm happy to say that we just recently broken the ground for school. This school is in a rural Battambang, Cambodia, with 530 students. This is from kindergarten to 8th grade. They attended the school. This consists of 18 classrooms, but 12 out of 18 classrooms, the 2 buildings is now condemned due to the termite problem. So there right now, about 40% of the kids actually dropping out because the schools is lacked of just the most basic things like the infrastructures. It's like there's no running waters, there's no electricity. But that doesn't bother them a whole lot. It's just that because they dropped out because of the distance, they have to travel to school, and plus they have to eat, to find work, help the family, support the family. So my goal is trying to get that 40% back, they are actually sharing this. Not really, you can't really say a classroom because there's no room to separate them. They under this building, practically just a roof over a building and on a muddy floor, on dirt floor. And as a matter of fact, one of the areas is now the termites stop building that mountain. I can see that. So I'm going to try to finish this first building that we are working on. So hopefully by the summer that I can go back.
And are there other? Have you noticed since you've been back? Is there a substantial reconstruction going on in Cambodia, or is it very small stuff?
I see a lot of thing changes, particularly in the city where tourists go, but like I said, in the rural area, it's being neglected, and that's where the trafficker goes seek in the rural where people they know the families are desperate.
Okay, and those are people who are still living as subsistent farmers. They're farm.
Yes, they just live the day at a time. They I don't think they see future ahead of them.
Okay. And I'm sure you've read about it. What do you think about the rather prolonged efforts to bring some of these guys to trial? What
I get a lot of sense from other people. Every time I go to Cambodia, we visit the genocide, the site. They call it turned into a museum now. It was once a high school.
S21.
Yeah, S21. Yes, and these people are already in the dying age. We feel that there's really no justice. Even this, they try and find justice after 30 years, and and these guys are already in their dying age. We feel there's a lot of this money can actually use to feed the poor, actually, because we don't see the point. And if a lot of people are moving on, they don't really talk about the past. A lot of kids who grow up here who came to this country when they're very young, they didn't go through what we went through, but they have no idea that their parents or their older sibling went through this because nobody really talked about it. And before I thought the reason they don't talk about it just because the language barrier, because kids grew up here, they spoke just really English, they don't speak Khmer. But then now I've started working on my book. When you start recollecting your memory back, and it's actually just nightmares. It's just haunted. So I can see why people don't talk about it, because they don't want to bring back this old, nightmare, the memory back. And people just want to move on, and that's what I get a lot of from other people who I talk about the trial.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to move on. They just don't see any sense, because they say if they want to do something, they should have done back. It's not after 30 years.
Okay. Is there anything else you can think you'd like to tell us or add?
There's not a whole lot, but I just hope that people start to, take a look at, around the world. It's, just step out, leave the home, and just see what people, are facing, especially the third world country, the trouble they're having, and perhaps bring some kind of awareness, and just don't let this stuff continue. It's like the Cambodian genocide. It's just very similar to the Holocaust, So hopefully that's no more story like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming in.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope this will be inspire to many.
Thanks.
Thank you.